Welcome to From the Lab. You got Dan Dawes here. I'm CEO of Response Labs, along with Andy Locke, our Director of Strategy and Data. Today, we're going to take a few minutes and talk about Magpie, a product that we are soft launching that's been cooking for a couple years. Andy, why don't we start off? Why don't you give us kind of the top beats of what Magpie is?
Sure. Magpie is a tool that basically sits on top of every other marketing platform that our clients have. It allows us to take in customer data and rolled up behavior data based on how frequently they purchase, how much they spend, those types of data points. Magpie will allow us to create a variety of different segments, and then the tool then takes those segments and allows you to create campaigns and activate those campaigns via the audience out to your other marketing platforms. So within Magpie, you can create what's called a campaign. You can create the audiences, and then you can send those audiences to the Brazes of the world, the Salesforce marketing clouds, the trade desks, to be able to target those specific people. And then coming back around, we'll talk a little bit more about closing the loop. It pulls in the transaction data from our clients and allows us to know, hey, did those people that we targeted, did they actually do the things we wanted them to do? Did they transact? And the tool then measures that against the control. So within one platform, sitting on top of everything else, you get segmentation, you get campaign lift, and you get additional insights into what's working and what's not in a matter of hours versus waiting on a data team to get you data in a matter of weeks.
Right. That's awesome. The dashboard aspect of it is a lot of fun to watch when campaigns are in there running. Before we get into a lot of the details of Magpie and its operation, why don't we talk a little bit about its origin story? As I said, we've been working on this for a couple years now. It's pretty recently got some legs as far as becoming a real kind of a standalone product that we can offer. But take us back to some of the initial use cases that we had. What problems were we trying to solve with our clients that led to kind of the seed of Magpie?
Yeah, I mean, the main problem was we didn't know if our campaigns that we were helping them run were actually effective. It took the marketing team weeks to get reports on whether folks transact or not. They had to get it from their data and analytics team, who were a small team and buried with a lot of other requests. And this is a pretty large organization to have that type of bottlenecking. So we wanted to try to figure out the best way to get that information. And we were able to get access to transactional data and output that into our kind of tools to measure. Everything started as basically a spreadsheet. This is kind of like, real nuts and bolts, kind of roll your sleeves up to figure it out. And our team created test and control groups. We did the marketing. It was email specifically at this point. And then we came back around and looked at, did those people we target, did they actually transact? What offer did they use based on the offers we put out there? And how did that compare to the control group that was held out? And lo and behold, we had a lift. And so we would do this ongoing since we now had access to the client data that we could pull it down whenever we needed to in terms of pulling transactional data. We now were able to solve that problem. So again, it just kind of started out as we had a need. We kind of pulled together a solution to meet that need, and we kept building on that.
Yeah, it really grew from there. I remember in those early days, I wasn't working the day-to-day. I'd meet with you and talk about the client and how production was going, and we had a lot of delay trying to get data from IT and different teams and getting it chopped up into the segments that we needed to do what we do, and that really led to what I feel was the actual need that we were solving for, where Magpie was born. And it's interesting when you think back a couple years ago, Response Labs was really uniquely positioned to kind of see this problem. We were living both with the marketing team, our marketing team, the client's marketing team, but also inside of the marketing technology stack. And that's a unique area where you've kind of architected Magpie. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. We've been fortunate to not only get access to the customer data, whether it's from their data lake or their e-commerce tools, or whether it's their CDP, CRM, wherever that data lives for them, we've been able to have access to it. And we're a CRM and loyalty ad marketing agency, so we focus a lot on that data driven kind of strategies. So we need the data. But more so, we also work, beyond just executing the campaigns. We've got marketing strategies. So we need deeper insights into how different, in this case, campaigns or offers are working, how the customers are behaving. But we also do media. And what you can do with that data from a media perspective just amplifies the amount of learnings and insights you can get in terms of how well your marketing strategy is working, how effective your campaigns are. So because we sort of sit in that, and that we, as an agency, really started out with a focus on data-driven marketing, the CRM and loyalty kind of aspect. We were uniquely positioned in that we were actually able to activate on that data as we grew our services out. So truly data-driven from the core.
Yep, absolutely. And that's cool. That's one of the interesting aspects of Magpie, that not only does it do what it does, but it's that bridge there. So let's get into some of the details about Magpie. Why don't you walk us through a journey, right? A local campaign fires, a guest sees the ad, a guest walks in, a guest checks out, Magpie gets the data, Magpie connects the dots. Why don't you walk us through that a little more?
Yeah. So if you think about it visually, one of the key features of Magpie is it's not replacing any platform you have today. We're not thinking about it as, oh, it's going to be your new email service provider. It's going to be your new CDP. It's not that. It sits on top. It basically bridges those things. It acts almost as a gateway of the data to be able to come in and go out for the purposes of, measuring how effective campaigns are. When that data comes in, let's say it's that customer you just mentioned, when we get that customer data on top of their transaction behavior, Magpie creates a variety of different segments, basically on the fly, for the marketer and the partners to have access and visibility to. It's a level of insight of segmentation that can sometimes take a lot of resources and time of other teams to pull together. And we're talking about everything from your basic RFM type, recency, frequency, monetary spend, to kind of look at that customer value breakdown. We're looking at life cycle. Those are sort of out of the box because we've got tenure and things like that. But then also, because we have that transactional information and we know if offers were used or not used, how much was a transaction discounted, we're able to start to build in things like deal sensitivity. How many transactions had a discount involved. So that's super important information when you're thinking about balancing your offer budget, or what you need to get somebody to take action. So all those things together, again, among other types of segmentation, it really brings a level of information about the data to a team that typically wouldn't have access to that, democratize that data. So you've now got a segment. And so the question always is, well, so what? I got a segment. I got some insight. What do I do with it? So what Magpie does is it takes that so what step, and it allows you to take the segment, create your test and control audiences, and then activate those audiences out to whatever your platforms are. So if you've got a Braze or a Trade Desk or an Attentive or any of these types of tools, you're able to take the audience that's created in Magpie, your test audience, and you're able to then input that into those platforms. We can output a CSV. We can do direct connection, whatever the opportunities or resources are, and then those campaigns run targeted to those people that you selected from that segment. And because we have the transactional data coming back around, we know within a date span when that campaign ran, we can look at amongst the test and control groups who actually performed the action we were looking for, the transaction in this example. And from there, we're able to get a lift. We're able to get an effectiveness sort of output. And the tool measures it against statistical significance. So we can come out of it saying, hey, this campaign, it drove a 17% lift in sales, and that's statistically significant. And that is a level of information in a very quick manner that, again, years ago would take a set of teams and a whole lot of time to get to.
That's a great walkthrough. One of the things that I keep going back to, and again, it's one of the favorite parts of Magpie for me, is the segmentation and pushing the segmentation out. when you have those segments that we talk about, when you have the system run an analysis, that RFM analysis, and you look at what those segments are doing, and you have something like a likely to drop off segment.
Yep.
Because you know this segment is likely to drop off and not be a champion or wherever they are, that gives us the ability to know what the personalized messaging needs to look like to address that particular segment. It's going to be different than the segment of champions. And the fact that the system automatically produces those segments is just so strong. So that was a great walkthrough. One of the things that's one of the best features is really the closed loop reporting, right? You've talked about the statistical significance, being able to bring back campaign dollars to actual return at the cash register. Can you explain in a little more detail what that closed loop reporting looks like?
Yeah, you basically touched on it there, right? It's we know these different, segments, in your case, the, likely to lapse or likely to be lost. And we're able to follow that particular, customer down to the individual customer essentially, but that group of customers, that segment, and we're able to figure out what's the best way or most effective way to reactivate them, re-engage them. We actually, that client, the example I gave early on, we, after, a year or so of helping them do more personalized, targeted messaging to these different segments using the tools we're talking about, we saw an uptick of active customers coming in and who's actually, and based on their rules, ordering in the last, I think it was 90 days. A large majority of those active customers came from reactivation. So being able to identify them, separate it out from those loyal and champion customers, and being able to figure out the best mix of message and offer to put in front of them and the best channel to do so allowed us to essentially help drive that increase in active customers from that reactivation. So right there, we're able to close that loop. Now we have a formula. We have a recipe for when somebody drops into this particular type of segment. Here's the recipe that provides us the greatest likelihood to get them to reactivate.
Yep, that's great. And one of the outputs that we saw, which was great, and it's serving our clients really well, is that when you get down to that closed loop reporting, you also it's broken down by store level. So now you're talking about store level data, and we can think about how does that impact corporate and corporate marketing along with local store marketing and campaigns that are run locally. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between what corporate marketing sees and what the franchisees actually care about? Because they're not always the same thing.
Right. So the beauty of Magpie, because we have access to that customer level data from when they enroll in a program or give their information, we typically are able to get location information. What location did they sign up at? Which location do they frequently visit? Most of the times they're the same thing, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes there's an option for your favorite location. Magpie, because we have that data tied to those customers and against those segments, we're able to allow a by location view of the data. So we talk about having a segmentation dashboard, right? Seeing the particular data points and features of a segment. For each segment, we've got a whole indexing table. How does this segment, against some of those key behavior metrics, how do they index against the greater group? And so you can look at that by location. And if the volume's there, it provides some really great insight into where a franchisee, in this case, marketing dollars, where they're contributing to through their franchise fee or something along those lines, how's it actually coming back? Where are they seeing the return? Who are the people that are coming in? And that gives them a lot of leverage on a local marketing effort to understand their customers at that level a bit more, based on data that we're able to kind of capture holistically. And then also, how does their customer compare against others? So seeing some of that data there, that just gives them another tool in their toolbox to improve their business.
Yep, absolutely. an outcome with one of our other clients when we're talking about kind of the local or the regional marketing is not all marketing plays the same in each region. And Magpie really sheds a light on that, where maybe the Northeast and certain messaging is really driving sales, but that messaging down south isn't.
Mhm.
And when you're able to look at it from corporate at a really high level, you get that macro view and you can start to kind of see the forest through the trees, which has been really, really strong. And it supports that personalized messaging at scale. It's like a utility knife to support that. One of the things that you've talked about a little bit already, but I want to go deeper just to make sure that everybody listening fully understands, is the platform agnostic design. Like
Mhm.
you and the team built this system to be platform agnostic.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that, about the why, about the technology? I loved your guys' approach when you built it, because so often we run into just tech stack hurdles, right? Like
Mhm.
it does this, it doesn't do this. Oh, we're fully in this. Talk a little bit about how you're addressing those problems.
Yeah, I mean, at its most basic level, Magpie can take in a CSV and it can output a CSV. And what's happening inside the tool is the type of things that, again, you would have to have multiple teams, IT, data engineering, analytics. You'd have to have these groups do a lot of voodoo, if you will, but do their thing in order to get you the information you need. All of that's happening on one platform. And just like those departments and those teams would sit on top of all your marketing tech stack, Magpie does that same thing. So because it can take in just flat files with the customer data, regardless of the size of that file. It can take it in and map it. We have a whole integration part that when you upload that CSV, you're able to map those fields to the fields that drive Magpie. Um, you're able to take in that data, right? Regardless of the source. If you've got a CDP, a CRM, as I mentioned, doesn't matter. If you've got segments you already want to use, doesn't matter. Bring those in. We can use that. We can categorically organize that within the tool. And then be able to create the audiences. We used to have a whole other team. So we have to give them the criteria. We need this segment, this percent held out, but we got to match that. You do all of that within Magpie. So it gives the marketing team, again, democratizes the data, democratizes the services that typically would be spread out. And think about it. It also takes a level of weight off the shoulders of those other departments that they're bottlenecking. Well, good. This is a way to kind of remove some of that bottlenecking cause and bring it into the tool. So the tool sits on top. And then again, it can export a CSV. Go ahead and just put that into whatever platform you want, be it the trade desk you can import, be it Braze you can import, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, whatever, you can import a CSV to those tools. If we want to get more sophisticated, we can have Magpie directly integrate. So you hit a button and it activates those audiences directly into the platform. And it's only sending the test audience in. So you're only marketing to that test group. The control group is still tagged and tracked within Magpie. So when the customer data comes back around and we are able to identify those transactions to that customer, that's how we're then able to produce the results in terms of effectiveness of each campaign.
That's awesome. That's great. We had an inflection point, at least in my head. You were invited with part of our team to one of our clients' annual convention.
Mhm.
And you did a great presentation where you showed exactly what Magpie does. You showed the end result
Yeah.
of what Magpie
Wasn't even
does.
Magpie then, but it was just our
We didn't have a
internal
name.
tool. Yeah.
Yep, we didn't have a name. But as it happens at these type of presentations, I wasn't there, but my understanding is you wrapped it up and a few people came over. A few people from the annual convention came over, the attendees, and they were super interested in how you were able to do what you did for this fast growing multi-unit franchise. And that turned into one of our first customers. So let's go a little deeper on that. When we're talking about Magpie, who's it for? Why? Like, what's ideal, best use case for this? And what are some of the edge cases that it can also be used for?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ideal user of this is somebody who typically would have to rely on others to get the information and tools they need. So you're on the agency side, it's a tool for our team internally. So our data analysts, our account directors and account supervisors, those leading the client, they all have the ability, because it's a very simple interface, to be able to have access and view segment data, campaign data, with a couple clicks. They could even create the campaign, activate those campaigns, and send those audiences out with a couple clicks. Very simple and easy to use. So your day-to-day, agency side, but also on the marketing side, if it's stood up and access is given to the brand themselves or the organization themselves, your day-to-day CRM manager, loyalty director, marketing manager, whomever it is, will be able to also do those same things. From a partnership perspective, it provides a tool that can sit, again, on top of an existing technology service offering. So if you've got a platform that provides a lot of the CRM, ESP, other types of services, Magpie can sit right in with those and provide an extra level of insight into data you already have access to. And then also it provides, from a white label perspective, the ability to kind of blend it into your existing tools as well. So we've made it very agile in that respect to fit the need of the individual group that is using it.
Yep. And we've gone through some kind of use cases. What really stood out for me early on was how well it works with kind of franchises and multi-units, because it rolls the data up and gives views of that data that provide insight to the marketing folks, to senior leadership, and all of those type of folks, in an accelerated manner. It feels like Magpie is really accelerating that democratization of the data. Now, as far as categories, do you have any thoughts on category sweet spots within within those multi-units?
So I think the ideal organization that benefits most and most quickly is your high volume transaction, quick transactions. So think QSRs, think FSRs, restaurant to food industry space, online retail where there's a high frequency of transactions. That is going to get you more information more quickly. That being said, speed of information is only relevant to the industry. So if you've got maybe a couple transactions a year or even one transaction a year, but there's other types of conversion or inflection points of a customer's behavior that indicates their value, they can also benefit from Magpie. So typically we would say, transaction, lift or transaction sale lift. Well, maybe it's not transaction lift. Maybe it's download X document, behavior. And that's what we're trying to get the audience to do, or set an appointment, or even just make their annual purchase, right? What's driving that behavior? How can we affect that behavior best? Magpie is basically a tool that gives you some of that ability.
That's very cool. So we've gone deep into kind of the nuts and bolts of how it was born, what it does, who it's for. I'd be remiss to not ask, what's next? Like, we have AI baked into it. Will you talk a little bit about the AI and what's there now, and what does the roadmap look like? What does the future look like for Magpie?
Yeah. So back to that, so what kind of comment we would get from clients, like, here's the data, so what do I do with it? We have our AI tool that looks at the data and provides sort of on the fly insights about segments, insights about campaign results, and it prioritizes those based on the algorithm we have, what's most valuable, what's most important, how should you act on that information. So within a single insights card, you can actually click a button and go right to activating a new campaign to the segment or the audience that's mentioned in that, whether it's an individual segment or an audience from a past campaign. So it gives you the ability to see a headline. This is the key takeaway. Click on it, get a description of, what are the inner details there. And then lastly, be able to click on it and activate a campaign against it. So it gives you a lot in a little space. And then secondarily, when it doesn't answer all the questions you have, we have an AI agent, an assistant built in, that you can basically ask it free language questions, free form questions, and it's going to answer them based on your data, your transactional data, your customer data, and specifically that segment and campaign result breakdown. So you can get a level deeper than just the insights provide. And again, we're using AI in I think, its best way to be able to help bring that to the customer. In terms of roadmap, what's next? I think the integration component. So right now, the integrations aren't sort of out of the box. They're sort of as we go, we will build them out. So the more platforms, the more outputs or inputs we can build and make that as easy as possible. I absolutely see that being a key service. Again, it can work with just the CSVs. That's for me, that's the beauty of it. Because once you get the data out, you can do whatever you need to do with it. But there are a lot of ways and benefits that'll come from, having it directly integrated. And building on the AI resources, being able to build in almost like an agent type approach where when certain things happen, new campaigns or new outputs are built in automatically. So think about, new audiences are updated or new audiences are supplied to those outbound platforms when certain actions are taken. I could see that being, a real benefit to the sort of the automative approach of this.
Yeah, the agents are definitely coming. I just did a newsletter on just all the agent activity that we've seen just this month alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely seeing that.
And we try to not do agents for the sake of agents, right? That's why we haven't necessarily built it in. And same with the AI. We wanted to leverage these resources as a tool. It's a support to the human intelligence that's brought in, right? That is kind of at the base of everything and all the decisions that are made. The AI is a fantastic tool to get us to that next level. And I think as we measure it against that stick, that agent component, what is the best use of that? It's helping to take care of that legwork in between and getting you to that next phase of the orchestration.
Right on. So we only have a couple more minutes here. What does it look like when a prospect or a client comes in and wants to use Magpie? Like, how does an engagement look with Response Labs?
Sure. So, I mean, just like any other new client in our agency, you'd meet with our team. We'd have sort of an intake discussion. We have some certain questions to answer. For the Magpie specifically, we're going to want to talk about where the data is coming from. We'll build out the requirements that we have, and there are minimal requirements to get the base level outputs of the tool. As you add more data in, we can do more things with it, and there's again a very easy mapping component to setting things up. And we can handle all of that for our clients. And then the output part is what it is. It's going to give you the audience data that you need. You can take and use on whatever platform you want. So long as we have the data inputs, then the tool will do what it does.
Right. And it's interesting because Magpie it's essentially a standalone product that a brand can come to us. We can help them get it integrated, make sure they know how to run it and do all of those type of things. And their team can be off and running in a very short period of time. Realistically, from the let's go to, okay, we're live, what do you think that is? Is that 2 weeks? Is that a month? What kind of time frame?
I mean, a week at the most. I'd give it days to get the kind of the information laid out and get everything organized. And then a couple of days just to QA everything, make sure things are aligned. So that part could take a little longer if we're going to validate against internal resources. So, hey, we build in basically different use cases to validate and peer review against to make sure everything's aligned and calibrated. That could certainly take a couple of days. That'd be outside of our
Sure.
ability to control timeline. But for us to get everything hooked up, it's pretty turnkey.
Okay. So it's really, just for clarity for us, it's usually the client that's going to slow things down. We can move really, really quick with this.
Which is why we're trying to solve that problem, at least in this arena, for what we can control.
Right. Well, that's great. I feel like we've done a great job covering all the bases. Certainly people are going to have questions. It's easy to get a hold of us. Go to responselabs.com. Andy and I are there. There's a contact form there. There's Magpie information. You can find your way to us. Anybody who's listening to this that's interested in learning more, please reach out. We would love to talk to you about it. Andy, any parting words?
No, I mean, I think the main thing is this could sound complicated, or it could sound like you need to, again, replace things that you already have. It's not. It's simple in execution, obviously complex under the hood. It does the things that a lot of other things that you have may do separately, and it brings it all together. And so when we talk about with our clients, it's really giving you access to tools and resources that just would take forever to get information from. And we're trying to decrease that time.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Thanks everybody for listening.
Awesome.
We will bring you something new soon.
Thank you.